You wake before sunrise. The fire outside has burned down to orange embers, and you can hear your mother grinding grain, the soft rhythmic scrape that has woken you every morning of your life. Smoke curls through the doorway. Somewhere near the river, goats are calling. This is home. This has always been home. Your father is already outside, checking the sky the way he does every morning, like he's reading a message written just for him. Your best friend will be at the river by the time the sun clears the hills. Your little sister is still asleep, one arm thrown over her favourite toy. You have never heard the word Berlin. You have no idea that far away, men you will never meet are about to sit at a table and decide what happens to everything you love. You just know it's morning, and there is work to do and a life to live. You have no idea it's already begun. Level 1. The villager. Your village sits beside a slow brown river. You are young, strong, and known by name in every corner of your village. Your father owns land passed down from his father and his father before him. Land you are meant to inherit. That's your dream. Not fame, not riches. Just this. The fields, the cattle, the home you'll build beside your best friends, the family you'll raise where your mother raised you. Life has rhythm, the harvest, the market, the stories elders tell at night. Your father is a respected man. He settles disputes under the big tree at the centre of the village. His word carries weight here. This is the only world you have ever known. You have never seen a white man. You have heard of them. Traders speak of strange ships on the coast, of cloth and guns exchanged for palm oil and gold. The stories feel far away, like weather in another country, but lately there's a whisper passing between traders. Strange men, pale skin, ships with sails like clouds, anchored where no ships anchored before. Your father waves it off. Traders come and go, he says. They always have. You believe him. Why wouldn't you? But you notice something. There are more of them this year than last year. Why are more foreigners arriving every year? Level 2. The strangers arrive. The first time you see one up close, you can't stop staring. His skin burns red under the sun. He writes on paper with a strange stick that leaves black marks. He offers your father cloth, mirrors, guns. For what? You don't yet understand. He asks about your land, not to trade for a season. He asks who owns it, how far it stretches, what lies beyond the hills. Your best friend laughs about it later. He wanted to know how big your father's cattle herd is, like he's planning to steal them. You laugh too. It feels harmless, but your mother doesn't laugh. She watches the strangers' men set up camp near the river. Your river, the one you've swum in since you could walk, and her jaw is tight. They don't ask questions like traders, she says quietly. They ask questions like men who intend to stay. Level 3. The border draws. Weeks pass. Life goes on. Mostly. You help your father repair a fence. You race your best friend along the riverbank, like always. Your sister begs you for stories at night, and you make one up about a boy who outsmarts a lion. None of you know that thousands of miles away, in a cold city you will never see, men in tailored coats are bent over a map of your homeland. They have never walked your fields. They don't know your father's name, or your mother's, or yours. They are drawing lines. One line cuts straight through land your people have called home for generations. Nobody at that table asks if it should. Nobody there has ever heard your best friend laugh, or watched your little sister fall asleep mid-sentence. They sign a paper, they shake hands, they go home to dinner. You, meanwhile, are asleep under your own roof, dreaming of nothing more than tomorrow's chores. What happens when those decisions reach your home? 3 months later, a soldier nails a notice to a tree in your village. Nobody can read it. By the end of the year, nothing will belong entirely to your people anymore. Level 4. The labourer. It happens on an ordinary morning. Men arrive. Not traders this time. Soldiers. They plant a flag at the edge of the village, a flag you don't recognise. colours that mean nothing to you. An official reads from paper, words in a language half your village doesn't understand. Your father listens, arms crossed, face unreadable. Then comes the translation. This land now belongs to a kingdom across the sea. You must pay taxes. You must grow crops they demand. You must ask permission for things that used to be yours by birth. Your best friend grips your arm. Permission? From who? To live in our own home? The soldiers came back with more men and better guns, and this time they are not reading papers. They are searching homes. Hidden grain is found. Men are dragged into the square. Your father is one of them. You watch, frozen, as they bind his wrists. Your mother screams his name. Your sister buries her face in your side. Your best friend pulls you back before you do something that gets you killed too. They take your father dragged away in chains. You don't know where. You don't know for how long. You don't know if you'll see him again. The village that once felt like the safest place in the world now feels like a cage with the door left open just enough to make you believe you have a choice. You are conscripted for portage. You carry loads on your head for miles along a new road cut through the forest. The road exists so that rubber and ivory can reach the coast faster. You do not benefit from the road. You only carry what it demands. The overseer carries a whip made of dried hide. He uses it when the pace is too slow. You have seen men collapse under their loads and not get up again. You have learned not to look at them for too long. Looking does not help them, and it marks you as trouble. Your father is different now. He no longer settles disputes under the big tree. The colonial administrator does that now. Through a chief he appointed himself, a man your father does not respect. Your father grows quiet. He works the fields that used to be his own, under quotas set by men who have never grown anything in their lives. You carry your loads. You survive the season. You learn the shape of endurance. Level 5. The Askari. You are 19 now. Recruiters come through the district looking for villagers, for forced military service, fighting people like yourself. Everyone knows what happens if you refuse. You are given a uniform and a rifle you barely understand. You are told there is a great war happening far across the water between the same kings who drew the lines through your land. You are shipped to fight in territory you have never seen, against soldiers who look like your own cousins from villages under a different flag. You do not know why you are fighting them, neither do they know why they are fighting you. You are both Askaris, colonial soldiers, spending your lives for men who will never learn your names. You carry ammunition through swamps. You dig trenches in soil that is not yours. You watch men beside you die of dysentery before they ever see a battlefield. The first body you find after the shooting stops is your best friend's. The boy who raced you to the river. The boy who laughed when the strangers asked about your father's cattle. The boy who was supposed to build his house beside yours. He is 19 years old. When the war ends, no one explains what it was for. You were given a small payment and sent home. The borders have not moved. The kings across the sea have simply redrawn which pieces belong to whom. Your service changed nothing except you. Level 6. The Migrant Worker. You are 24. The land at home cannot support your family anymore. The field that once fed your family now grows rubber for a company you've never seen. On the best soil, and that soil belongs to the colonial companies now, you carry a passbook. That says where you are allowed to go and when. Without it, you can be arrested for simply walking down the wrong road. You travel to the mines, hundreds of miles from your village. You live in a compound with hundreds of other men, all torn from their own homes by the same hunger. You descend into the earth each morning. The tunnels are narrow and hot. Rock dust fills your lungs. Men die from cave-ins. Men die slowly from the dust, years later, coughing the way your own grandfather once coughed from age. You send money home through unreliable channels. Sometimes it arrives, sometimes it does not. You have not seen your mother in 3 years. You have a daughter now, born while you were underground, and you have never held her. The mine owners grow wealthy. You grow tired, in a way sleep does not fix. Level 7. The Clerk. You are 30. A mission school gave you an education years ago in exchange for your language and your name. You write in a script that is not your own. You pray to a god introduced to you by strangers. You are grateful for the reading and the writing, and you resent what it cost you. The education earns you a position as a clerk in the colonial administration. You wear a collared shirt. You process paperwork for taxes, for land grants, for permits that govern every part of African life in this territory. You are paid more than a labourer, but less than any European doing the same work, no matter your skill. You see, from inside the system now, exactly how it functions. You see the quotas, you see the land seized under legal language designed to look fair. You see your own people punished for crimes invented to control them. You begin keeping a private notebook, not for the administration, for yourself. Your daughter is 7 now. She asks why she cannot attend a good school in town. You do not have an answer that will not break her heart, so you give her a smaller truth and keep the rest to yourself. Level 8. The Organiser. You are 36. The notebook has grown into something more. You meet quietly with other clerks, teachers, and returned soldiers, men who have also seen the machine from the inside. You begin organising, first a mutual aid society, then something closer to a union. The administration calls it agitation. You call it survival. You write pamphlets by candlelight. You are followed sometimes. Twice you were questioned by colonial police. You learn what to say and what never to write down. Word arrives from other territories. Movements are forming across the continent, each shaped by the same borders, the same grievances, the same stolen decades. You realise your fight was never only local, it was always continental, drawn by the same ruler in the same room in Berlin, decades before you were born. Your daughter is 19 now. She reads your pamphlets before you distribute them. She has your father's steadiness and none of your fear. You are proud of her in a way that frightens you because you know what this country does to people who refuse to stay quiet. Level 9. The Freedom Fighter. You are 44. The movement has grown beyond pamphlets. Strikes shut down the mines. Boycotts empty the colonial shops. You are arrested twice, held without trial for months at a time. You are beaten once, in a cell with no window. You do not give them names. Your daughter joins the movement fully now. She organises women in the market towns, coordinating in ways the administration does not expect and cannot easily suppress. You worry for her every day. One afternoon, police arrive looking for her. You tell them she isn't home. She is hiding under the floorboards. For the first time, you understand exactly what your parents felt when they feared for you. Independence does not arrive all at once. It arrives through negotiation, through pressure, through years of funerals for men who did not live to see it. When the day finally comes, when the new flag rises over the old colonial buildings, you stand in a crowd of thousands. You do not cheer as loudly as the younger men around you. You have buried too many people to only feel joy. You have grey-haired now. Your best friend do not survive. Your parents died before independence. Your sister is still alive. She grips your shoulder and says nothing, because there's nothing that needs saying. She weeps openly beside you. For one perfect moment, it feels like everything stolen has been returned. Is the struggle finally over? She asked while crying. Level 10. The borders remain. The country is independent now, but the border drawn in Berlin never moved. It cuts through your grandfather's old grazing lands, splitting cousins into two nations that now compete for the same river. The new government inherited the old colonial economy, the old export crops, the old debts. You watch a generation of young leaders try to build something new inside boundaries that were never meant to hold a nation, only a resource. Some succeed, some do not. Coups happen in neighbouring countries carved from the same conference table decades earlier. You have seen enough history now to recognise the pattern repeating in new uniforms. Your daughter has children of her own. Your granddaughter asks you what the village was like before the flag came. You tell her the truth this time, all of it. The river, the yams, the big tree, the day the interpreter could not answer a simple question. She listens the way you once listened to your own father. You are 80. You walk slowly now, but you still walk to the river most mornings. The village has grown into a small town. Some of your grandfather's land is still farmed by your family. Some of it belongs to a company whose name you have never learned to pronounce. You think often about the men who came with papers you could not read. You do not know if your granddaughter's children will finally live in a country shaped by African hands rather than a ruler and a map. You hope for it more than you can say. You have spent a lifetime carrying the weight of a decision made in a room you were never invited into. The men at that table in Berlin never knew your name. They never will. But the shape of your life, where you were born, who you call countryman, who you call foreigner, was decided in a room you never entered by people who never once looked at the land the way you did. That's the part history rarely tells you. The empires end. The borders stay. In the language taught in its schools, in the crops still grown for someone else's markets. And somewhere, right now, someone is living inside a line they never drew, just like you did.